Hey, greetings everybody. Sam Windisch, Windisch Gunworks. Welcome back to the bench again. And continuing on, we are getting into installing some of the small parts into our frame. Number one, we're going to do two parts today. We're going to do the ejector, and then we're also going to do the plunger tube. Getting this gun put together. We're going to talk about quite a few things with the ejector today. This is a more important part to the gun than a lot of people realize. Many people just think this thing gets pinned into the gun and then it should be perfect. Well, not the case. These things often require a little bit of tuning to get the proper ejection pattern you want, to make sure you have reliable ejection. That's not going to cause stovepipes or other problems with the gun. And quite often, as was the case with this one, this part needs to be fit to the slide as well. Without further ado, this piece is an EGW. This is an EGW 9mm ejector, 38 Super 9mm ejector. Like I said before, there's only two sizes of parts. Okay. 45 caliber and then everything else. So this is that 38 Super 9mm everything else size. Okay. So what we're going to do, the first thing I always do when checking in an ejector for fit, and I've actually encountered frames that were either burred up in the holes or needed to be re-drilled, and I've had to re-drill them. Okay, but the first time you test fit your ejector, do not just stick both legs in there and hammer it in, okay? Because you're going to want to be able to remove it throughout the process, okay? So first thing, you're going to test each peg or leg, whatever you want to call it, individually. So I'm just going to stick this guy in there. And if you saw the last episode, you know I've already actually, there you go. You're going to want to have a very thin flathead screwdriver or some other very thin prying apparatus handy for when this happens. So you can get this thing out. There we go. Okay. So all I'm doing, there we go. Okay, is making sure that this thing sits flush all the way down. Okay, I want to make sure that this thing just absolutely bottoms out flush to the frame. And it does, okay, one peg at a time. Okay, so now this is a very snug fit, so that gives me a lot of confidence. Now I'm just going to check the rear peg, same thing, just make sure that it bottoms all the way out. Okay, bottoms out, so it's nice and flush. Now, why am I looking for that? Well, I want to make sure that this is going to be seated down all the way to the proper orientation. Now, if it's not, okay, what's probably happening is you've got some burrs, okay, from the manufacturing process, and that's okay. All you need to do is, you can maybe just take a little sandpaper over the top, knock the burr off, or get the proper fitting drill bit, and just kind of by hand, you can just kind of walk the drill bit in there and knock those burrs out. You may have a burr on your ejector itself. If it was dropped or if it was previously fit to another gun, which I wouldn't recommend using the ejector out of a different gun unless you really know what you're doing. Just check for burrs and in nicks and stuff like that. That'll cause it to hang up, okay? But this one is good to go. It bottoms all the way out. So now I'm going to install it all the way because what we need to do is I need to create a recess in this front peg for the pin to go across it and lock it in place. Okay, so I don't think you guys can see, but I'll talk about it. So let's get this thing, and this is just as simple as putting it all the way in. Now you may have to tap it into place, and that's perfectly fine. Typically the first time it goes in, it's going to be very, very tight. Go ahead and tap it in place, all right? Now if you don't have like a kit to do this with, well, there's really no ejector installation kit. But if you go to Dawson Precision, I don't know if they got them in stock right now, but they will sell the proper size drill bit, okay, that goes through this hole And it is not just a standard drill bit, it is a left-hand twist drill bit. All right. So I'm going to talk to you about why a left-hand drill bit is advantageous in this application. Okay. Now I don't use a left-hand drill bit for this. You know, sue me. But it's not a bad idea to use one. All right. If it is, I would advise you to drill from this side, from the right side of the frame. Okay. Over into the left side. And that's because what this drill bit is doing is cutting the recess in the front leg for the pin to go in. And where is my pin? I don't even think I have it out. Anyways, you want that drill bit to cut it, and that pin is holding the ejector in place. Okay. Now, because of the rotation of a left-hand drill bit, okay, being counterclockwise, when you're coming in from the right side of the gun into that front leg, it's actually pulling the counterclockwise rotation of that left-hand drill bit is pulling the ejector down into the frame so that you get a nice, tight, snug fit. Man, where is that? Where is that pin? I'm over here trying to show you stuff, and I don't even have my pins. Okay. Anyways, so yeah, that's why you want to use a left-hand drill bit if you can source one. Okay. Now, what size drill bit is it? Okay, I use two different sizes. All right. For a 1911. This is for a 1911 only. A 2011, if you're doing a 2011, is a different size drill bit. Okay. Either a number 52, a wire gauge size 52 drill, or 53. Okay. Very small drill bit. And that is the difference of a 60 thousandths drill bit and a 63 thousandths drill bit. Okay, a number 52 is a 60 thousandths, and a number 53 is a 63 thousandths. That happens to be what this drill bit is, because I actually broke my other one, and I just haven't replaced it yet. Because when you buy them in this size, you got to buy like a dozen of them. Okay, so now, do I drill them from the right side if I'm using a standard right-hand twist drill bit? No, I drill it from this side. The reason you want to drill it from this side, okay, is if you are inexperienced in drilling, and I'm not saying you are, okay, but if you are new to this and using very small, relatively delicate drill bits, you want that drill bit to be as far inside there and use the frame as a guide. As much as possible to drill that part. Okay. When you come in from this side, you can certainly do it, and I do it all the time. But I've also done this many times, so you know, I'm very comfortable with this procedure. And you could do this in a drill press too, I imagine. When you come in here, you don't have much of a guide, and there's a bigger chance for this drill bit to get off-centered cattywampus and break off on you. Okay. So, you know, if this is your first time doing it and you're not really experienced with using tiny little drill bits to drill, you know, either 4140 carbon steel or stainless steel, okay, with tiny little drill bits, I would advise you get a left-hand drill bit, come in from the right side of the frame, use the frame as a drilling guide. High RPM, okay, like really as fast as that drill can go. Don't slow it down. That's how you break your drill bits. Because these drill bits will catch on the stainless steel or that 4140 and not have the rotational force to cut through, and it'll just grab. And as soon as the tip of that drill bit grabs into anything without cutting it, it's gone, just like that. Okay, it's just gonna snap off. Now I've just tossed it right here, but you get the idea. Okay, these are very delicate drill bits. They need to be spinning very fast, and they need to be lubricated. So just kind of keep that in mind. All right. Okay, moving on with our small parts installation. Note, I have removed the ejector for this because we need to make room for this tool, and once we start using this tool, you're going to see why. But we don't need the arm of the ejector sticking up over this. It'll get in the way of this procedure. So You can do them in either order, just as long as you take the ejector off the frame to do this procedure, or you can just do this before the ejector, and you won't have to worry about it. Okay. So here's our plunger tube that we're going to be installing and staking in today. This is the Brownell's plunger tube staking tool. Going way back, this is kind of one of those tools that you kind of have to have. You can't substitute it for anything else in order to build a 1911. But fortunately, it doesn't cost too much money. I think they're like $30, so not a huge, terrible investment in the grand scheme of things. Looking at all the other parts you're buying for a 1911, you know, is it going to sit in your drawer? Sure, but it's a tool that you just have to have. All right. So what exactly does this tool do? Well, it stakes in your plunger tube. So if you look in the plunger tube, you got these two little legs right here. They're going to go into the frame, and they're hollow. Okay, they're drilled out. And in this tool right here, it's cut out because it's going to sit over your frame. And there's a pointed little nub in here that we are going to drive into this hollowed out leg, and we're going to spread it out to grab the frame and permanently secure this into the frame. Okay. Now there's a couple different methods, I guess, of doing this. Some people will say you need to come inside the frame with like a little burr tool on a Dremel and create a little cavity in there for this to expand out into to create a mechanical lock. In an aluminum frame, I'm not convinced you need to do that because the aluminum is softer than the steel. So when we're expanding the steel, if we're putting enough force to expand that steel, we're putting enough force to expand this aluminum. And we're just going to push the aluminum out with the steel and create that mechanical lock. If you're doing a stainless steel or carbon steel frame, I absolutely support doing that, and that's how I do it. I just create, you don't need much, okay? You don't need to create this big, you know, funnel. All you need to do is just remove a hair bit of material right at the tip of the hole there on the inside of the frame, and that will be just enough for these legs to get swaged out and to create a mechanical lock. You don't need much, okay? You just need somewhere for that metal to go. As long as it can move out, okay, maybe 5 to 10 thousandths of an inch, you've just created enough mechanical lock to permanently lock that thing in, okay? So, yeah, with an aluminum, I'm not going to do it on this because if we can move the steel, we can move the aluminum, all right? Now, if you look at the plunger tube, you'll realize that there's kind of a short end and a long end. If you look at the holes in it, you realize there's a small opening and a large opening. So you can, in fact, install this thing backwards. What you're looking for is the short end or the small hole facing forwards towards the muzzle, and the long end or the large hole facing towards the back of the gun. So we're just going to plop it in right there. You see it fits very nicely into the gun. This is an Ed Brown unit. It just happened to be the one I clicked add to cart on when I was buying all the parts. Now onto the kit here, you see this weird looking tool. What this is a like a crush support tool, and all it does is it just goes inside the plunger tube, and it fits very nicely in there, and it provides support from this getting crushed by the tool when we crank down on it, and you'll kind of see that, okay? Now here is the block that is going to go over the plunger tube. As you see, it's cut out for the plunger tube, and this is what is going to be, this is where the pressure is going to be applied to here when we're squeezing in, okay, with the tool. We obviously don't want to be cranking down directly on the plunger tube, so this block just goes right over there like that, and then this pin just supports the inside of the plunger tube from getting crushed by the block. Okay. All right. So now moving on to the three-handed operation here. There we go. So there you can see the pointed little nub in there, and what we're aiming to do is hold this like this. Okay, we're going to get this over and into the frame, And we're going to get that little nub inside the little legs that are now poking through to the inside of the frame. Once we get that lined up, okay, so once the little nub here is lined up into the hole, we're going to screw down on this little bolt, I guess you can call it, okay, until we're sitting up against here. This is just a little handle sticking here. It gives you some leverage, and we'll give it a good crank, okay. So I will attempt to stay in frame as much as possible while doing this, but it's kind of hard to see what you're doing here. So open that up. Okay, so I'm going to be doing the forward leg first. The rear one, it's kind of hard to see. Oh, I really need to back that thing out. Okay. So now I'm just kind of wiggling this around. Oops, thought I had it. To get it lined up. Once you get it in there, you can't really see too well. So if I get my head and you're looking at the back of my head here, I do apologize. But I gotta get this thing in position properly before I go putting random divots on the inside of the frame. That's kind of another thing to watch out for, is before you crank down on this thing, make sure you got it lined up right, because if you don't, you're just gonna put a nice little divot on the inside of your frame. So one last check. Pardon me, I'm gonna just double checking here. Yep, okay, so we're all lined up, and I've got my little crush support thing in there. I'm going to put my tool in. And here we go. Okay, so that's pretty stiff. I'm just gonna, yep. I can feel it. You can feel it in the handle when you're swaging it out. There we go. Okay. So that one's done. And now, okay. Yep, see, it's already locked in there, okay? I only did one. And when I look inside, I can definitely see that that angled pointed nub, okay, has jammed in there and swaged out both the leg in there and the frame. Okay, so like I said, you don't need to take the Dremel with an aluminum frame, because if you can move the steel, you can move the aluminum, right? Now the second one, this is why you need to take the ejector out, because this tool needs to sit flush up against like that, the back of the magazine well. And if the ejector was installed, you wouldn't be able to get that orientation, okay? So let me actually get this thing all set up here to do the second one. And doing the second one's a little bit easier because you don't have to worry about holding the, holding too many things in place. Okay, get my little rod in. I'm gonna go just double check, make sure that I'm in there. Okay, I am. And so same thing. Coming in here with the handle, this is going to rotate. Oh, what's that? Okay. Oops. And there's only one way that this is going in. If you notice that this little pin or rod has a smaller end, that's for it to exit the smaller hole of the forward end of the plunger tube. Okay. Okay, that's good. Oh man. Okay. Okay, let's make sure we didn't tweak this hole hole. Okay, this still goes in. Yep, okay. So this still goes in and out just fine. And looking in there, yep, I see a nice little coned out swaged thing, and there, that is a permanent mechanical bond. Okay, the only way this thing is coming out is if the holes that the plunger tube is sitting in itself are literally like wallowed out all the way, and this thing is allowed to come out. But that thing should stay in there totally secure for the rest of the life of this pistol. So there you go, pretty simple. Brownells makes a great tool for it. I mean, if I wasn't running my mouth and talking to you guys about using this thing, I could, I would have knocked that out in 5 minutes, right? So there you go. And that works the same if you need to replace one. If if yours came loose or something like that, and you want to restake it, hey, there you go. Okay, so there you go. And we're going to come right back. Short episode today, just those two things. But we're going to come right back with another one. Finishing up our thumb safety and moving into the grip safety. And once we have that done, those two things done, this gun will be functionally and mechanically sound to go ahead and take to the range. So thanks again for tuning in. Hope you guys again learned some little tips and tricks and how to use a cool little tool, some things about your ejector. And I'll see you guys on the next episode. And as always, thanks again for the likes, the subscriptions, the shares, everything else in support of the 1911 community. And as always, folks, remember to reload and let freedom ring.